I want to finish on that. I want to continue on that subject, and then I'm going to lead to talk about other people and finish with how we can help. How about that?
Sounds good to me. All right, we have a few people joining us for our ending here. Let's see who we've got. There's
Bonjour.
There's Dean Mitchell.
No.
We're inviting you back on.
So it's not on there.
Oh,
I have to re-click on our screen. Hello, Dean. Welcome back.
hey, we're back.
Yeah.
My wife was like, "How long are you gonna be on here?"
So who's holding your phone?
I think we're gonna wrap it down, babe.
So who's holding your phone? Is it your kid? Is it Connie?
No. My wife is, she's fixing dinner stuff.
Oh, Connie, bonjour.
Yeah, she's in the kitchen. I came back in the office so I could have the silence. They're upstairs on their iPads. So.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Otherwise, it would be chaos in there right now.
So I don't know how many people come back, but I think we should I'd like to continue on that theme for a little bit and then ask you another question, and then we'll do a greeting because we've been over an hour. I think that's all.
We've been on here for a while.
We've had over around 100 people staying for a full hour with not dropping off. So
wow,
whatever you say, people are listening. So it's good.
Wow.
And it's climbing fast for the second portion.
And the second
too.
people are coming back. Hello.
They're coming back. Oh, people are coming back. Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me start where we were. So we're not going to repeat everything for the new people who missed the end. I just want to where we were. We were talking about the life of Dean and his challenges in his education up to now. And now we're talking in a more philosophical thing and artistic, aesthetic about the meaning of art, or what kind of art the gallery like to show, the dealers and all that. And for me, it's a profound, and I've had the opportunity to talk to some, in panels with museum dealers, curators and all that about that subject. So it's a subject that's very dear to me. First of all, in my opinion, there is no hierarchy in art. It's horizontal. I respect and appreciate all form of art. I think we should give everybody the right. It's one of the best tools, the best platform to express your feelings. So I myself don't have a hierarchy. However, I have opinions. So when I mention things, it's just my preference. Doesn't mean one is better than the other.
Right.
I see differences. So
right. You can learn from anything. You can learn from all arts. You can learn from all. Yeah.
So, but from our last discussion, I'd like to talk a couple minutes about this because I think it's very profound and there is misunderstanding sometimes. I think in art, about that subject, there's two directions. One, which is more, if you will, more decorative, something soothing, comforting. You like to have a painting that's happy and, to make.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong. It's one direction. It's a little more decorative, in my opinion. Nothing wrong. It's important, and you need that. We need the beauty. It's like flowers. We need all this beauty. But with that, I come back to what the people say. Oh, it's sad and all that. On the other hand, one of my feeling of what art is art brings emotion. It could be shocking, disturbing, and you learn. Sometimes you watch you look at a painting. It's like watching a movie. You have feeling, you have goosebumps. You are shocked. You think. And for me, this is something very profound about art. But to be able to give that kind of feeling, it's usually artists that speaks from their guts, from their hearts, and often whether an internal feeling or they want to talk about a cause. Like you have a lot of body of work that express the struggling of some African American and things. We have others, like we have David Casson, which I think was here earlier, who did an whole body of work about the survival from the Shoah. You know, you have, I'm thinking of you like Vered, Shamir Pasternak, you know, the Invisible of Miami, what she's been painting with homeless people in the street and building a relationship and want to show the world. And when people paint with this, in my opinion, my humble experience, it's usually comes out stronger. There is some depth and strength in the painting. It may not be attractive, but it's so. Anyway, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us are informed by, you know, our upbringing and the things that are important to us. And so, for example, I grew up poor. I grew up around a lot of friends who were what we would call po. I grew up poor, but some people grew up po, which is really, really, you know, not very much. And so that landscape has informed me as a human being. And so if I see poverty, that is one of the major things I would like to, you know, that I have constantly been a overture of my work. And so the first time I remember the first time I was in a show in Phoenix at the Phoenix Art Museum. It was called West Select. I had a friend of mine there who's a painter. His name is Michael Swearingen. And he came to the show and he asked me, he said, "Have you ever been to any of the Native American reservations?" And I said, "No, I never have, Michael." He said, "Would you like to go?" I said, "Well, sure." I said, "Have you?" He said, "No, not really." And he lived in Phoenix for a while. And we drove around around the reservations because the roads were one way in, kind of one way out kind of place. And he just slowed down and said, "Wow, oh my God, look at all the poverty." And I said, "Yes, Michael, look at it. This is what I shall paint." And so I began to introduce that landscape into the Western genre. And so it was met with, not very much interest in terms of wanting to buy it. But personally, I guess I wanted to sell it, but personally, I didn't care about the money at that point. I felt like these spaces need to be seen. People drive by them like they don't exist. This is a part of the American narrative. How did these people get here? Why are they here? This is a repercussion of history. Let me paint this. This is a modern day sensibility that once my eyes are locked upon it, it is my honor to be able to reflect that space back so that people can be more sensitive to what is going on in the larger landscape outside of their own small worlds that they may want to travel in that feel comfortable to them. Comfort is not always necessarily good. I talk to my children about that. Sometimes hardships and different things can help shape your sensibilities to other spaces that people are into. And sometimes people will look and say, well, sometimes people say, well, they didn't work hard enough, or they were alcoholics, or they were drunks, or they were this, or they were that. Well, guess what? I grew up with people who drank a lot. I had an uncle who died at the age of 49. And that was because of alcoholism. Now you're talking about my uncle who probably watched his father die in a jail cell because people would not help him. So what does that do to the mental stability of a young man who sees that happening to his father? My grandfather was a strong person. In fact, my grandmother told me a story where he didn't have enough money to feed the family for the week, and he asked the white gentleman to loan him money for the week to help feed his family, and he said he could not help him. And he said, well, I can no longer work for you. My grandfather left that job the same day and found another job. So what I'm saying is, you can change people with different stories about your life. I'm not, I had a lot of hardship, and with my father did very well. My father drove around in very expensive cars right by my grandmother's house, who was raising me, never stopped to even say hello. But I have met my father. I do not hate my father for it, because I do not understand the landscape of his era that shaped who he is. And so my thing is to bring my sensibility and my sense of forgiveness to him, and we have a great relationship now. Yeah. I think there's a way to move people forward in a more sensible, humane way, but you have to be able to meet them where they are sometimes. And sometimes that can be very hard, because when you have deep wounds, of despair and no way out, it hurts. There's a deep hurt there.
Yeah.
And sometimes it comes out in ways that are not very, very, very nice. I have an outlet because I'm a creative person. I found my voice through art. My grandmother nurtured it. I had a grandmother who shaped me, my moral compass. We all need a moral compass to help shape our sensibility when we see these kinds of things going on, not to stand idle by, but to offer constructive help, not just talking instructions, but real actions. If you have wealth, help. If you have a talent, help. Be a part of the conversation, not just in words, but in actions. It is actions that move us forward, not just conversations. Conversations are great. I've had plenty of them around the table with people. But what moves people forward is people willing to share their wealth, not hoard it. Help. If you have enormous amounts of wealth, you can see the hurt, the people struggling to feed their families. This pandemic has shown us this. These skeletons are coming up like crazy. Even the horrendous situation with George Floyd. I mean, these things should not be happening in the modern day world, but they are. Look at the technology advances that we're made. We are able to have a conversation through a little phone. We have advanced so much, but our spiritual moral compass has not caught up with our technology. And now technology, we have the instant phone to show us certain things that are very painful. And let's face it, images are very, very powerful. They are very, very powerful. And so people react to those images. And so it's important for an artist. I think artists are important because they can help shape the conversation into a civil one. They can help shape it. Art has always done that.
All right. So if I may, there's a lot out there. So I'm trying to recap a couple of things. First of all, I believe from what you said that when there is a meaning, when you share, when your painting is a testimonial or a message, I think often it gets stronger. It comes across, to me at least, if you have really something to say, to show, message, often it comes stronger.
Yes, I think it does, Pierre, and I think it comes stronger because, I think when you're, for me as a painter, when I am painting something, it is a spiritual experience for me. Had I just totally relied upon the idea of just selling my work, I would never paint certain things that people didn't want to see. But I know that if I can show that work with power in terms of technique, in terms of clarity, in terms of my ability to articulate why I have chosen a particular space to the viewer, then they become empathetic. We can then have a civil conversation about this space and why I have engaged them at all with this particular subject at all.
Yeah. So on that, I'd like to tell another point that you underscored is the fact that as an artist, I think it's art in general, not only painting. Painting, that's what we're talking about.
But music, there's books, there's writers, there's poets. People paint pictures with words.
Yeah. So I believe it's still the best way we have today. There is the technology that you're talking about, the film, the internet, and the social media and all that. However, I still profoundly believe that art, it's almost a responsibility that we have through the art to express our feelings, to show the world, to show those divides. So I think we have a duty to support the art, to support the artist, because this is the best way to understand the world better. So we have
absolutely. I mean, when you think about it, Pierre, when you want to learn about any people on the planet, any part of the world, you go to their arts, you go to their science, you go to the artist, because the artists are the recorders of history. When you know your history, when you really know true history, it can help shape your sensibility of what not to do. But sometimes history repeats itself, as we all know, because we are a creature of habit. Yeah. Once we are a creature of habit. And so it's hard sometimes to break habits that are built into our social construct, and then they're reverberated through constant images. And so, but I do think that art can bring people to a deeper place and understanding different cultures. I mean, as we know, some of the worst wars in the world have been religious wars, and so there are people who actually believe certain things based on how they were raised. And so, but as you travel, even with myself in regards to art, I didn't know much about art. I just knew I like to draw pictures. I just know I was a kid who liked to draw cartoons, I like to draw pictures. But when I got more exposure to the larger world, like museums and these exquisite things that were on walls, and I'm seeing people stand next to them like guards, and these were things of value. These are things of value because they record our history. And so that's a part of the human experience. It's a part of learning. I learned how to paint by going to the museums and looking. I also learned about the exclusion of people of color not even being on the walls. So I learned a lot of things by going to those museums, and I was able to share that with my family. I told my mother, I said, we designed the automobile, we designed clothes. I said, Mom, whole industries are built off creativity. So you're talking about jobs and the economy. How about talking about the creative voices that can create those new jobs and supporting those creative voices and creating new industries and new ideas? The humanities need to be taught more in schools. When you teach the humanities, you teach people sensitivity about the world, about the atrocities of the world. Why do you think we have the Holocaust Museum and all these different things? Those are learning experience for us, for things that we should not do to one another, based on social constructs that are totally destructive to our core of our own humanity.
Yeah. So we've been there, so a while. I think we're going towards the end, but it's interesting. The other day I was invited to do a podcast, and people were asking me, what's the difference? How you get into the arts? And one of the things I said, one of the difference where I grew up in France and what I've seen here in the US, although you are an exception, is often as a kid, your parents don't, in France, you would go to the museum, instead of going to the park or to go to a baseball game or to go to watch sports or do that. The thing, you would go to a museum. It was the thing where you bring the family, and it's less like that here, and it worked for you. So yeah, art is very important. I like to go back on two things. One is, first of all, with what you said, I like to make a dare to myself. This has been so profound, and this discussion, I don't know, we'll see with the public what they think, but for me, it's an amazing experience to listen to you. And I would like to, with Andrew and daring Andrew and myself, and also Cindy that helps us, to perhaps on my live, to continue a series of live where I would invite people like you who have doing art with a meaning, a profound meaning. So I'm hoping to invite other people, and some of them which are watching now. I mentioned a couple earlier. So that's number one. Number two, you mentioned about to help. How can we help today supporting artists that can help them to be that, to succeed enough so they can share their work and sharing their experience? Do you have any recommendation for them, what to do, and for all of us, how we can help?
Well, I do think it, it's like anything. It takes a combination of things. I can only go by my own experience. I grew up in the segregated South. Now, had I not thrown the wider net in terms of outside of just the African American community, because I grew up in an all Black community, but I did not isolate myself within that community. And so my experiences, though some were painful and some were not very positive, I got an enormous education by associating with different people from different backgrounds and different races. And so I think that, and also I think the media, the larger media at large, should also highlight more people of different backgrounds who are professionals in different fields. We know we can, we know we see the sports and the entertainers, but we also need to see doctors, engineers, lawyers, attorneys. We need to figure out how to throw a larger net to our younger people, and we need to throw a more solid educational base within our educational system about how the economy works. All these things are part of a way of helping people understand. How many people understand the NASDAQ? How many people understand what they invest in if they even get any money? And so there's a lot of ways that the larger community can help. And through those different associations, even with artists, people are surprised, that I had a sense of business. One of the first books I bought when I got fired was How to Invest $1,000 to $5,000. So what I'm saying is, it takes a community to help shape people's destinies. It can't just be one particular individual. The art world is certainly a part of that umbrella, but it takes the business community. It takes artists, writers.
Okay.
It takes a lot of things.
But today, like now with the audience, if you have a message, I understand and I agree. It takes a village. It takes many things. There's not one silver bullet. There's not one magic wand.
And we live by example.
Idea of what you recommend for the crowd here today who are watching you. Give us some tip of how do you think we can contribute above and beyond the obvious of what you said, that hopefully the people watching have a sense of that already. But give us some tips.
You mean in terms of what they can do to help other people?
Yes, but more specifically in the context of the art. Here, you have in front of you, you have 100 art lovers. Either they are artists, they are collectors, they are teachers, and we all care. If they are here today, it's because they care about the subject today, and they care about you or me. And now, if they want to help, do you have any specific practical way that we can help, particularly in the context of artists, helping artists to rise up?
So yeah, I mean, there are different organizations that, like the National Watercolor Society, American Watercolor Society. There are different organizations that you can join and become involved with. When I was in Kansas City, a lot of the African American artists didn't even know about the American Watercolor Society and all these different things. I was one of the few artists that were interested, and I shared that information with them. I think by sharing information, by having seminars, by going to art shows, if you're well, I have bought other artists' work. There's different ways to support them. I've had people to drive 4 or 5 hours with their young children for me to talk to them and see their work and critique their work and give them some hope about what schools to go to if they're interested in going to an art school. There's different ways that you think it's a small pebble, but you'll be surprised how those pebbles how that small seed will grow. I mean, so I was going to quit artwork. I was going to quit doing art. I was on the bleachers at my junior high school, and I said, I'm really not that good at it. You know what? He said, you're not good technically. He said, but you can see abstractly. And that one thing propelled me to stay in art. Otherwise, I was going to drop out of it. Now, that seems very small and insignificant, but it was significant to me as a child. So you don't know what encouraging words and your experiences that you've gone through. And be honest. Don't sugarcoat stuff. Do not sugarcoat it. Be honest with people. Tell people it's a struggle. It's not easy. Not everybody's going to be nice to you. Not everybody's going to help you, but someone will. That gives people a realistic idea of the landscape in which they're dealing with. So when they run into disappointment, it doesn't work out. Well, guess what? Well, so-and-so said it didn't work out for them either. They're going to try something else. So you give them encouragement that way. Don't give them romanticism. Give them something encouraging.
Okay, so that's good. I like to bounce back on one thing, and we're gonna end soon with a good note. But I want to jump back. There have been a lot of artists that have been discouraged because didn't have the academic knowledge of drawing, of being representational, and they may have had some abstract notion composition, and they were discouraged or they were criticized, and they gave up. So it's very interesting when you are encouraging people, and what I heard, what you said, that person said, oh, you have a nice notion of abstraction, and I think that's very important. People are often worried that if they don't do something.
Well, you know what's really funny about that is that, I didn't have great technical skills, and I recognized that weakness when I got into a school of the arts. I couldn't believe some of the stuff that was being done by human hand. I said, oh my God, when you're in a small town, people tell you can draw, you can this and that. But then when you get in a larger pool, you realize exactly where you are, particularly coming from an underprivileged background. So when I got to the Columbus College of Art and Design, I lost about 70 pounds after about the first semester. I was thin as a rail going back home. And so, but the drawing classes were very traditional. I learned how to draw really well from life drawing. But the painting classes, the teachers they didn't show you any instructions. They didn't show you how to mix your colors. They didn't show you anything. They just walked around and critiqued. So I learned how to read. I learned how to paint by going to the library. I went to the library, and I would check out stacks of books, and I would read, and I would experiment. I was a roommate with some people who when I checked out a bunch of watercolor books and I was trying to learn how to use watercolors, they were laughing at me. They said, "You're never going to get that good at that." Within a year or two, they weren't laughing anymore because I dove in and I really worked at it. They were laughing at me, said, "That stuff looks horrible." I said, "Well, I'm just going to keep working at it." And so I think that you have to understand that this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. And so if you keep that in mind, you'll be surprised how much better you'll get by doing it. People want you to do workshops and I've done workshops. I have bad habits because I wasn't trained academically like that either. And I'm telling you, I've mixed colors up sometimes. I said, no, I can't even mix this color again. What colors did I use? Because I wasn't trained this way. I wasn't trained in that way. And so, but I didn't mind that. I think that's what makes the work a little bit more unique. But the bottom line of it is, you got to work, people. You got to work at it.
All right. So, but don't be intimidated when someone criticizes you. Take it as a
no. Hey, everybody ain't gonna love what you do.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody.
So I think we're gonna need to wrap it up. I could chat with you forever, and I think there's a lot of amazing content. So one is, I said I dare to continue those live and inviting, people like you and maybe you again. Also, but I don't know what, when, how yet, but you have inspired me even more to reach out, and I am I'm pledging that together offline we're gonna chat, and I'll see how together we can help, and we'll come up with something. So,
yes, I think maybe a section on business, because a lot of artists don't know enough about business and how to negotiate and that kind of thing. And also, you can have things to encourage people if they have an idea or a vision, because a lot of times, who's going to be believing your vision more than you? Only you. You have to take control of your vision. Now, See, people don't help. A lot of times, people ain't going to help you push the wagon up the hill. But if they see that wagon going up the hill pretty good, they're going to jump on board. So that's just human nature.
Yeah. So, all right. Thank you so much, Dean. I think, at least for me, and I hope, I can't wait to get some reply. I ask everybody, please make your comments, share whatever, the beautiful thing that Dean has talked about. I made some pledge that we're going to continue to do something. I'll work with Dean on some initiative. And on that note, I think, can I say my last word? You ready?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, go paint!
Go day. Enjoyed it.
All
Bye,
right.
everybody.
Merci, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Okay.